Hello, welcome to Fashion Means Business Fashion Talk that today is going to focus on fashion and data analytics. And we're joined today by Marco Trincavelli, who's the principal data scientist for H&M. So thank you very much, Marco, for joining us today. He's going to, Marco's going to give an insight into how data is informing business decisions across H&M. And although Marco is relatively new to the fashion industry, joining H&M and the world of fashion a little over a year ago, he has a wealth of knowledge in computer engineering, data analytics, and machine learning. As the principal data scientist at H&M Group, he drives the research initiatives in artificial intelligence. Today, Marco will share how data is increasingly being used across H&M to inform business decisions and to improve business performance. This is a particularly relevant topic, as in recent years, we have seen a huge growth in the collection of data across the fashion industry. In fact, according to Bernard Marr, a strategic business and technology advisor, there are 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created each day, with 90% of the data in the world generated in the past 3 years. Much of this data, however, goes unused. Andy Judah, CEO of Collect, estimates that data is being stored, captured, and managed by 92 companies in increasing volumes. However, only 52% of those businesses are actually using data to give a competitive advantage in the marketplace. It is a common problem as data scientists capture and analyze data, but often lack the fashion retail knowledge to make informed fashion and business decisions. So Marco today will demonstrate the role of machine learning and forecasting in securing business success, and will share his views on the future of data usage across the fashion industry, highlighting the growing opportunities available to fashion students graduating with an understanding of data analytics. So Marco, thank you very much. The talk today is very timely, as at London College of Fashion Business School, we have just validated our MSc in Fashion Analytics and Forecasting, due to launch in September of this year. The MSc Fashion Analytics and Forecasting is the first fully online postgraduate degree to combine fashion business knowledge with data analytics, with a view to producing industry leaders capable of both staying ahead of fashion trends, but also anticipating changing customer behavior and reacting fast to the ever-changing fashion world. So Marco, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to hand over to you, who I'm going to give some valuable insights into how data is actually being used at H&M, and how, as you as a data scientist, are combining your data knowledge and understanding to inform the fashion world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah, for the invitation and for the nice presentation. So yes, today we'll briefly talk about how we use data at H&M in order to reach better business decisions. But before diving into the detail, I would like to just mention what is our vision in AI Foundation, which is the division at H&M Group that does data analysis and AI. So what we want to do is to make H&M Group the industry leader in applied AI with scalable and integrated solution covering the entire value chain. And this is important because often when one thinks about fashion, retail, data, AI, it's always recommender system, what comes first to your mind, but that's not actually the case. And I will show you how we use data all over the entire value chain, actually. But first, just a little bit of history. So our AI initiative started in 2016 with an exploration phase where we could kind of start evaluating whether this makes sense at all. And then in 2017, we actually initiated the development of a few use cases of AI that I will talk a bit more in detail later, until when in 2018, then we really established an advanced analytics and artificial intelligence function. So we started having a sort of status, a place to be in the company, till when in 2019, here I say taking the lead, when it actually means like starting making money out of this. Like we started actually doing good business out of using our data. And then 2020, we started a big company transformation where we became a business tech, which means a kind of division inside the company that is seen as a sort of technology enabler for the whole business. So we kind of reached a status, let's say, by now. And this was the timeline of our journey. And now we could go a bit more in detail in the kind of AI initiatives that are active at H&M at the moment. And as we can see from this slide, they span all the value chains. They go from design and buying, where we do assortment quantification or fashion forecasting, to production, where we help in price negotiation or provide recommendations for suppliers. Then we have the logistic aspect, where we try to optimize the allocation of the goods in our warehouses, or we can even, like from recently, plan warehouse moves when we realize that we have too much of something in one warehouse that is lacking in another. Then we can move goods around. And then we also have some AI-based markdown optimization, and of course, customer personalization. And now, like the important takeaway message from this is that the key was to focus on large-scale use cases with high value and feasibility. What does this mean? That in the beginning, like we focused on something that with a moderate effort could provide a very high value for our business, because we needed to get to the status of, okay, this is useful, this does something. And what it means, high feasibility in this case, it means kind of try to limit the technical difficulties to what you actually need to unlock the value, which in this case, it meant to be able to go large scale with some use cases, to be able to deploy on all our 73 markets. And therefore, what it implied from the algorithmic perspective is that we kept the algorithms quite simple in the beginning. On the contrary of what many people think, that you soon, like as soon as you start with AI, then you have to go and do neural networks and all what possibly you can find on the internet. But we took the other way around. We built a very stable data infrastructure, a very stable process to deploy models, make sure we can scale up. And in this way, we could create value very fast. And now I'd like to explain you a few more details about 3 of these use cases that were developed in the beginning of our AI foundation. So first, I would like to spend a couple of minutes talking about how we did assortment quantification. So assortment quantification, what do we do here? We forecast the pre-season demand of each article in our assortment, and we optimize the best we can the stock coverage. So we start with the first step where we try to estimate some sort of commercial belief, and we add some human insight that come from the fact that we have been active in retail for, like, I would say 70 years now. So we kind of have a know-how in how to do this. And then once we have done that, we do some demand forecast at a country and article level. So what we estimate is for this kind of t-shirt and England, like how much will we sell of this all over the season? So you can see that here, if you do this data driven, you have quite an amount of models to train, given that you have like in the range of like some 100,000 articles in your assortment. Then you have quite some machine learning model to train here, right? And then the third step of this use case was to So given a forecasted demand, to be able to quantify and time the orders to the suppliers. So when and how much, again, at the country and article level. And what we obtained, what kind of impact we generated in our company was increased sale, higher gross margin, and decreased overstock at the end of season. So that went well. And now this was at the beginning of the season when we need to quantify the assortment, but now we make a time leap to the end of the season where you have sales, or midway through the season, depends. So what we do when we have a sale and we want to optimize our strategy to do markdown, and in this case is what we do on our website, actually on our online channel. So what do we try to do here? We try to define optimal markdown prices in order to maximize the stock of value that we can realize over the period of the sales. And here first we start by baselining, so to say, how much we would sell of a certain article if there would be no discount. And then the second step is to estimate the price elasticity. So how much would articles react to discounts? Because, for example, like if you want to sell a swimwear at winter sale, you can discount it as much as you want, but you will not increase much the sales because people doesn't care much about summer yet in January. So while for other goods, like they have a very big price elasticity, and so this helps on understanding like which kind of sales would I have if I apply this discount. And then at the end, we have an optimization algorithm which performs a global optimization, because what we want to do is to, at the end, try to maximize the net sales over the sale period. But at the same time, we want to achieve a high sell-through. So we want to basically empty our warehouses. And therefore, we need to have an overall strategy that decides which kind of markdown to give to each item. And yes. And then at last, like just a very brief overview of what we do with customer personalization. And here we divide our work into customer journeys. So we believe the customer is taking a journey, an experience of purchasing with us. And so what we do is to first collect signals from the users. That can be like a certain user made a transaction, was a certain user browsed and already bought a category or a new category. And then we do our algorithms, and then we try to generate some sort of a customer experience, which can be like, this is exactly what we've been looking for, or this is a great complement to what I purchased last week, or that was perfect timing when spring arrived. And we have several of these journeys. And after we did that, so we developed quite several use cases, which goes end to end, like from data to customers, which in our case, since we are an internal function, a customer can be like H&M as a brand or one of our brands in the group. So we are an internal functionality. But then we kind of realized that after having served our customers several times with these use cases, like from the development perspective, what we were doing, which means develop end-to-end each use case from data to customer, was not very effective because there were several parts in common. We were creating silos of knowledge, so the knowledge transfer in our division was not going very smooth. And then we realized that it was a time for a change of perspective in how we do stuff. And then we introduced the concept of the fountainhead, which is a fancy name for a kind of set of tools and processes we use in order to try to democratize AI. And then, like, what do we mean with democratize AI, actually? And here I have like 4 points that can explain what we mean with democratization of AI. The first one is reduce the time to market for the AI use case development and industrialization. So since we do like some sort of POC, like proof of concept, to when it's industrialized, we want this time to be as brief as possible, obviously, because it's just when it's industrialized that we can make money. Then a second goal with the Fountainhead is to make AI tools accessible for all the product teams in order to enable usage and unlock value of AI. Like, for example, if somebody has already worked with, I don't know, running a certain machine learning model on a GPU, we should make sure that this know-how that was acquired in that effort is available for everybody else, so to don't repeat the effort every time we want to run something on a GPU, but there is some sort of know-how that is accumulated, for example. And then, like, talking more about the people than the products, we want to also contribute to a higher AI skill set in business tech, in our DV, in our business unit, through AI literacy and hands-on support. Because as I expect, we will go through later with Hannah during the Q&A, like our business tech division is a business unit which is composed of very diverse backgrounds, with very diverse type of people working together, ranging from people who know fashion but doesn't know numbers and algorithm, to the other end, like a data scientist that knows everything about numbers but very little about fashion. And then we need to find a way to, say, have a sort of AI literacy that I mean, doesn't really bring us all to the same level, but at least make us able to understand each other. And then we also want to increase the model output availability for all. Like, for example, the demand forecast module should be available both for a data scientist that is developing yet another use case and he needs demand forecast as an input, but it has to be available also, for example, for a merchandiser that doesn't want to have anything to do with data science or algorithm development, but he wants just to see the demand forecast figures. And so we need to have a way that the output of the models is available for all the company, independent of who and where the people work. And then here is where this Fountainhead places itself in the overall picture. So in the background, the bottom layer of this pyramid, we have the data. And here we have another division, which is called Data Foundation, which is in business tech as well. We have a whole division which of people which are just curating and making sure that data is available, that we don't do privacy breaches and all this kind of stuff. And it's ready to work with. Then we have the Fountainhead of top, which is basically developing a set of common capabilities that will be then used by the users of the Fountainhead, which are the product teams, the tech users, the business users, or other enabling team, that then they will serve the summit of this pyramid, which is the customer and partners. So our brands, basically, that will sell clothes. And this was the whole picture, like from the data to the customer. But now I would like to provide you a different view of the Fountainhead, which is a bit of a more concrete perspective. So what is the Fountainhead in practice? So is a large range of technical and non-technical resources, which is available for our product team, which are developing our AI-based product. So the first thing is that we have a set of technical AI tools that are useful for use case development. And this is what we call the Fountainhead platform. But then we also have two different aspects, like the exploration side of things, where we do not really want to productify something that we do not really do not really know yet if it's going to produce value for our business. So we always have some sort of research and proof of concept phase in the beginning, where we have like hands-on ideas that we build in a proof of concept, and then we feed this to either the development teams, or we build some sort of generic component that goes into the fountainhead. And here I say we, because I'm part of the exploration team, so I feel like I'm doing this myself. And we also support the development of the product teams when they need to start up a new use case, because we realized after a while that in the exploration team, we have become very good in kind of starting up stuff, because with respect to, let's say, a product development team where you have a product, like, I don't know, say assortment quantification, you start it up and then you do product increments and you keep it alive over several years. In the AI exploration and research team, we have a different DNA. We work with rather short POCs that we want to kind of test an hypothesis. Will this work or not? And then once we kind of develop the capability of starting something, and then we help use cases in starting up. And then even more towards the soft side of things, we have an AI best practices team whose purpose is to provide access to training, online courses, documentation, templates, and best practices. So a way to work on ourselves, kind of. And here I have 3 examples of how we envision this fountainhead to be used in the company. So the first one is the faster AI use case industrialization, where I would say as a machine learning engineer, what I want is tools that reduce the time it takes to scale my product and to industrialize my use case. And then the fountainhead gives you access to a reusable tool that you can use when developing and scaling up use cases. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Then we have the AI training and development support. So as a product owner, like product owner is a project manager, basically, I want to know how I can apply AI in my daily work and get some hands-on help when developing a new use case. And then the product team can access to training material, documentation, templates, and ideas on how we developed previous use cases and how we developed some POCs. And we try to give easy to use AI tools for that. And then, as I already mentioned before, we also want to give easier access to raw model output, basically. Like as a merchandiser, I want to have easy access to the latest sales forecast in my stores and regions. And then the fountainhead should have good and nice interfaces so that like people who is not like with a background in programming or something can have access to the data and to the model predictions and use them comfortably in their daily work. And that's where we are now. But what's next? And now this is a bit of a biased perspective because I am myself driving the research initiative. And what we want to do next is that once we have this sort of, in my opinion, very good in-house organization where we have started creating like general purpose components that can be used to create values for our business. The next step is to enter into academic research, because academic research can provide us 3 main benefits. The first one is the research itself, so that by doing research, we can improve the state of the art of machine learning, artificial intelligence, mathematical optimization in a way that serves us best. Because if it's ourselves doing it, we will do it in a way that H&M will get the most value out of it. But then we also have like a whole corpus of research, which is not made by us and may be difficult to be accessed if you don't have a division which has as a job description to like work with state of the art constantly. So this means like if other companies develop and publish, or universities develop and publish methods, in the research team at H&M, we are just there to just use those kind of methods and try it out on our own application just to see if that's something for us. And then eventually either to say, no, don't use that, or to say, we have something and put it in the fountainhead so that some product team will pick it up sooner or later. And then, like last but not least, probably my favorite byproduct of research is employer branding and PR. Like we need to put H&M on the map of cool enterprises doing AI research, because this will create discussion, will attract talent, and will help us in building our network of experts. And we started this initiative like a few months ago. So we are still in the beginning, but it's going quite well. And that's all I had for today. And I guess I'll give the word back to Hannah.
Thank you very much, Marco. Really very interesting insights. And I suppose what's particularly interesting is, moving away from this very sort of siloed way of working to, as you call it, the fountainhead. As a business, has that been well received by all the staff members? Is there an understanding of perhaps the benefits of data across all the different departments, would you say?
I would say yes and no, in the sense that this fountainhead thing is quite a radical change of perspective. And every radical change of perspective is somewhat disruptive, right?
Yeah.
And then disruption comes with questions and from time to time issue. People like it, people don't like it. And yeah, it's... So I would say in general, yes, but then like for some people, it may take a bit of a longer time to appreciate it than for others.
And I suppose as they start seeing success, increased sales with less inventory. So there's a realization that actually it's working, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, that's one aspect, like that's the business aspect of it. So something that maybe managers or product owners would look at, but then what I believe is that this fountainhead will be a good transformation for everybody, even for tech people, like say a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. Like if you work in silo and you are a data scientist working in a use case, then you have to spend most of your time writing code. That is actually not very interesting, because it's like loading data to your model, and you have already done this 50 times in your life. You have to do it 51. And so it's not really stimulating work if you do it like this. While if you work on top of some platform like the fountainhead that can give you this kind of ready-made pieces of code that you can just use, then you will have like data scientist doing data science job, machine learning engineer doing machine learning engineer job. So it will, yes, provide value to the company, but I would say provide value also for the individuals who work in the company, in my opinion, because it helps you focus better on what's the hard part of it, like what's the value you have to bring with your competence.
And gives a better understanding, I suppose.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. We've already got a couple of questions coming in, actually. We've got a number of questions which center around data being used for sustainability. So Monica's asking a question here is, how can data analytics and AI tools help drive sustainable initiatives?
Yes, I think they can do a lot, actually, because like when you have a database of the size like the one that H&M has, for example, but I'm pretty sure many companies worldwide, or all the big companies worldwide have one, then you cover all the aspects of your business, and then you can really see like even those aspects of sustainability and fairness are captured by your data. And this is actually something that, in my opinion, will be more and more important in AI sort of workflow, because sooner or later, like cases like the Microsoft chatbot, which after a while started being racist, or this kind of, how can I say, accidental misuse of AI will be more and more common the more companies will adopt AI. And therefore, it will be sort of regulated that you need to have like a sustainability and fairness assessment of your AI. So it's not only to achieve sustainability, but also like AI per se needs to be sustainable and fair. Otherwise, we will get a stop from the regulation. Like, and we don't need, in my opinion, to go as far as companies like Cambridge Analytica, which were maliciously using AI to manipulate polls. I mean, you don't need to make it on purpose. It can happen even when you have good intentions. And so, in my opinion, like sustainability is still an open question in AI, but is an urgent one.
But I suppose if there's more information, then there's perhaps opportunity for greater transparency across H&M as a business, and therefore opens up opportunity for perhaps increased sustainable practices across your supply chain, for example, or across product development and management from that perspective.
Exactly, you're right. And we are striving for that.
Yeah. So as a business, you are using AI to try and implement more sustainable processes and practices across the supply chain and cross management of product.
Yes, yes, yes.
Brilliant. Okay. You mentioned in your talk, Marco, about the challenges of having a real mix of a team. What's your sort of typical employee at the data team, or what would be the perfect profile of a future employee of the data team at H&M, do you think?
Yeah, well, I would say the perfect employee would be somebody who can develop algorithms and know fashion perfectly. Then, if I can imagine that this is quite a utopia, or at least can be instantiated in a very few person, then what we do is that we try to build cross-functional teams. Like when we have one of those product teams developing a use case, you always have like a product owner, which is, say, the project manager of the team. So the one that kind of is business minded and try to plan the work in a way that we have like increments that will provide value steadily to the business. But then at the same time, you have like business analysts, which is usually people who is, I can say, probably not super skilled in algorithms. Like they have a basic knowledge of algorithms and data analysis. They can use, for example, tools like Tableau or business analytics just to produce dashboards for management, or to analyze results of some algorithm. And no fashion, no supply chain, no this kind of aspect. And then you have like machine learning engineers, which are the ones that care about the whole data and computational infrastructure. So just to see that everything is up and running and works well, we can scale, like we have done this on one market. Will it work on 10? Will it work on 70? That's what the ML engineer will do. And those are usually the majority in a use case, because this is super hard. And then you have a couple of data scientists, usually, which are the ones that, let's say, are the mathematicians of the team, the ones that analyze the problem and try to provide the solutions. So like usually like data scientists and data analysts work in very tight cooperation, because like the data analyst provides knowledge to the data scientist does something, and the data analyst says whether it was good or not.
And I suppose that's the challenge, is this, you know, as you mentioned earlier, there is not there's not many data scientists that perhaps understand fashion, so to speak. You know, it's
no.
Science and the art, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of them at H&M that they do, but just because they had fashion as a sort of personal hobby from before. But definitely the education path of a data scientist doesn't, like the traditional one, doesn't offer you anything about fashion.
Yeah. Hence the reason we identified a gap in the market.
Exactly, and I see that.
Yeah. And in fact, you've been very supportive in our sort of validation process of the MSc in data analytics. So thank you very much. We have a question here about the unpredictability of fashion. It's coming from Bill Webb. Talks about the flexibility and agility being vital to the industry. And he's just wondering, how do you develop processes and protocols to allow disruptive factors such as weather, delay container shipments, COVID-19? You know, there's always some unknowns happening.
Yes.
How do you get around that?
That's a £1 million question, right? But no, I mean, in general, like I would say agility is one of our cornerstones. So we are aware of it, and we try to have agility embedded in our way of working and in our way of doing our product increments, in a way that we have like sort of quarter periods in which we divide our planning of development, so 3 months period each, and then inside there we always have new insights, and we adjust like our like the what we develop according to the new needs. Then like when things which are as disruptive as COVID happen, yeah, what you say, you realize that the online channel is important.
Yeah.
And then you realize that that's a safe bet for the future, kind of.
Yeah. And yeah, in the world of business, we have those challenges anyway. So they're not just a challenge for data scientists. They're a challenge for all of us in the world of business. And so
yeah, no, but I think we have that frame of mind of, let's say, this agility, and be able to actually replan, reconsider your choices, talk to the stakeholders very often, because that's just another aspect. Like what Bill raises in this question, I guess, is yet another aspect. Like, yeah, we talked about fashion experts and data scientists, but what about everybody who is working with logistics and all the other aspects of supply chain that maybe they have been working for several years without having anything to do with like data analytics or AI? And yes, like we are working with them as well to try to understand how to improve parts of the business which is behind the curtains.
Yeah, back of house, hidden away.
Yes.
So actually, Marco, you shared with us some of the way data can be used sort of by being able to judge when to mark down and how to mark down. So depth of markdown and what categories to mark down. There is a question here about the fast fashion model being based very much on buying cheap, ordering big, and focusing on sell-through rate rather than profit margin. So I suppose, how can AI be used to better manage price optimization? So some businesses can fall into the trap of just focusing on markdown and discounting to drive sell-through. So how can AI be perhaps used to better optimize the profitability of your stock?
Yes, AI and algorithms in general can be used because they, I mean, at the end of the day, what are computers good for? Computers are inherently not clever, but they can process a huge amount of data, right, in a short time. And then, like this Markdown case is the typical case where you need to process a huge amount of data in order to produce a large amount of sales forecasting for all your articles in a specific market. And then, like, once you have done that, which is already quite a daunting task for a human, like it wouldn't be possible to make it on time if you would have to do it without AI models. Then what you do at the end is that you, like, usually the business side specifies like global constraints. Like, for example, you need to achieve at least a certain amount of sell-through, or you cannot give more than a certain amount of reduction and discounts in total. At the same time, try to have as high net sales as you can. So you see that you have this kind of global constraint over all your problem that span several hundred thousands of articles in different dimensions. And that's what AI can do well. Brilliant. And an Excel sheet cannot do that well. Yeah. Nothing against Excel, but yeah, that's what many do, right?
And actually, you spoke about the need to research and innovate. I imagine that with AI and in your role, you're constantly learning.
Yes, yes. I mean, we need to, like, in this AI field, we need to be humble, in the sense that right now we need to think like kids that go to the elementary school. Like, we have learned a bit, but we still have a way to go to be good at what we do, because like AI is a very, or at least this wave of AI, which is probably the first one who reached all the way out to the business, has been happening in the last 10 years and not more. And there are many challenges and pitfalls which are still open, among which, for example, the problems with fairness in AI-based models. Like, how do we know our models wouldn't discriminate gender or discriminate ethnicity, or I mean, we are learning every day, not only new methods, but also new challenges that since we are a rather young discipline, we were not there yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, still a lot to be learned, and I suppose anyone who's got a thirst for learning.
Yes, and that's why it's very interesting for me to be the kind of work to do the kind of work I do, because I like the hardest challenge I have is really to prioritize the challenges and be strict on not taking on too much work, because there is really an endless amount of opportunities. It's just to understand, like, you are not thousands of people working on this, so you need to keep a limited portfolio, but really, like, the resources are the limit, not the amount of challenges we have.
Yeah, your job is never done. Actually, no. Just sharing a slide on the course that's starting in September of this year in fashion forecasting and analytics. Just a question here about, and I suppose it carries on from you sharing your sort of fountainhead idea. There's a question here whether or not that fountainhead principle could be applied to smaller companies.
In theory, yes. But then, like I would say, you have to make sure that you have a sort of critical mass for making it meaningful. Because like the fountainhead works only, in my opinion at least, when you have teams like these AI best practices, or then we have an AI platform team, we have us doing like research and exploration. So you have kind of a certain amount of resources which are devoted to the fountainhead per se. Then you need to find the sweet spot, like where is the trade-off? Like for us, the trade-off was clear that having the opportunity of develop, I would say more than 10, even 20 use cases at the same time, then it's clear cut that, yeah, we need something like that. Otherwise, the silo will be way too many. As a smaller company, like it all depends on where you draw the line of this trade-off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So possible, but just depends on your priorities and focus.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just a little bit on sort of change and implementation of things such as the fountainhead and bringing in, you know, data scientists within a company and encouraging those that have may well been working in the fashion industry for many years to understand the value of data. We have a question here that's coming from Matt Werlock, and he mentions that he's currently starting to use data science at his company, but many of the employees think that it's kind of witchcraft or black magic, and he was wondering whether you had any tips on how you could perhaps encourage perhaps the unconverted to become engaged with technology and, you know, the capabilities of AI and get them to believe in it.
Yes, that's a very concrete and very common problem. Like, for example, like if you have been a merchandiser for 20 years and you have worked according to certain principles and certain beliefs and certain rule of thumbs that have sort of guided you all the way through your career, then all of a sudden it appears this black box that magically spits out a number and decisions to you. And then you rightfully ask, okay, what's this? Why should I trust this at all? And then what we usually do at H&M, that we experience that sort of challenge as well, is to develop our use case, having the users, at least some of them, the one which are more maybe like data oriented or with a frame of mind which is a bit more innovative, to be part of the teams as advisors, as stakeholders from the real beginning of the development, so that after a while, it's not really black magic anymore. And then, like, this is a way to do it. That is something that we do right now. And then as a research initiative, I'm planning to work quite heavily on the explainability and interpretability of AI models. Because if a model, as nowadays, just gives you a number, a forecast of a sale of a certain item, just out of nothing, then of course you don't really believe it if it doesn't agree with the common sense you have and maybe with several years expertise. But if the model would be able to tell you this will be like this because of A, B, C, then the barrier that you need to overcome for the acceptance of the predictions from machine learning models or AI will be much lower, because then the user will say, all right, yeah, you have a good insight there, and let's go for it. So I think that on the long run, we will have to work a lot for giving the explanation of why, basically opening these black boxes.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah, and being patient, I suppose, and understanding that perhaps some people are not going to be perhaps so willing to accept firsthand the abilities of data, but over time.
Yeah, no, patience is paramount. Like patience has to be there, and I would say from all sides, in the sense that let's say from an algorithm developer perspective, working at AI Foundation, you may think, okay, like people outside AI Foundation do not really understand the purpose of this, and why should I bother with explaining them or so? But on the other hand, we always have to keep in mind that there is a person outside AI Foundation which think, I've been doing this all my life.
Yeah.
Like, and I know what I'm doing, and it's true. And then, like with the introduction of data-driven techniques, we are bringing some sort of disruption that needs to be handled correctly and taken in small steps, just for the sake of everybody, just for the sake of success.
Yeah. And I suppose sometimes perhaps the decisions or the kind of outcomes from the analysis of the data aren't always what you'd expect, maybe.
No, they often are quite controversial.
Yeah, which can be challenging.
Which can be challenging.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Marco, we have.
So yeah.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you mentioned this example. I think you mentioned to me like this example of Game and AI a few days ago, where you had the Lee Sedol, the champion of Go, playing against the AI, and then at a certain point in the game of the World Championship, like the AI made a very weird move, and all the experts said, "All right, the AI did a blunder here, gonna lose."
Yeah.
And then 10 moves later, it was clear what the AI was doing.
Yeah.
And I kind of recognize this in the fashion business. Like when we apply AI, there is always this kind of moment in which you say, "Oh, this algorithm doesn't really work."
Yeah.
But then you perform a few simulations, and then you have this kind of gotcha moment where you say, "Right, that's what the algorithm was after."
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you think the algorithm doesn't work, and then with time you realize it does. And then we start learning from the algorithm.
Yeah. That will be the case in a few years. We are not there yet, but I can imagine that in a few years, yes.
Yeah. Exchange of knowledge between both parties. There's quite a lot of questions here around returns and how H&M are using data to perhaps reduce returns. Obviously, there's been lots in the press recently about the increase in online sales, but that's obviously triggered an increase in returns of products. So perhaps you could share a little bit some of the ways AI could be used or to try and reduce some of those returns.
Yes, that's indeed a very relevant problem, especially for online sales channels. And yeah, we are using AI to predict returns as well. It's a quite new use case, and yeah, it's quite similar to all the other ones. Like you try to use like features of articles or data, or to a certain level, customers to predict how much of this order will be returned. Like obviously, like I think it's a tendency in some markets. I think especially in Germany, to buy a certain article in all sizes that you may think that would suit you, and then send back all of them except one. And so you have like return figures which are super high in certain markets. And then for us, it's really like a way of try to understand how to, I mean, what to propose to avoid this, like better size recommendation in that case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say size. If one would have the capability of suggesting the perfect size, a big part of returns would go. Not all of them, but a large part of it.
Yeah, Marco, actually, you did share sort of midway through the talk the joy of working, you know, in your role is that you're always learning. So there's always lessons to be learned. So, you know, whatever's triggering returns, that's something, you know, that is to be learned over time, and then with time, you know, could result in reduction in returns. Let's hope, anyway.
Yes, because like this thing of learning, like I would like to just make a comment about AI, machine learning in general, like learning from data and how it's used nowadays in the companies and in the scientific world. Like we don't have to forget that machine learning learns from data which are collected from the past. And we do the assumption that the past will hold in the future. So what we do is to learn correlations that we have in our data and apply them to the future. Jumping over the step of going to causation, so to formulating a sound theory that is supported by the data, that is what usually scientists do. And then we have to be a bit careful with that, because, you know, and that's why there is always something to learn. Because if we just base our conclusions on correlations which we observe in our data and automatically learn with models, we are always up for surprises.
Yeah. Yeah. So never a dull moment. Okay, so just on learning, we have a question actually about learning and training, and just asking what programs should do you expect your staff to be trained on? So you know, the particular data analytics programs that you'd recommend to study in order, maybe for those that want to go into data analytics.
I mean, data analytics, like your master in fashion analytics and forecasting, will be perfect. I was reviewing the kind of courses you're gonna give, and they will give a very good background for somebody wanting to work as a data analyst in our division. So yes, for the data analyst, that. Then for a machine learning engineer or a data scientist, I would say everything with which has to do with computer engineering, computer science, mathematics, statistics, even physics, maybe economics in certain aspect, but a bit harder, I would say. Econometrics maybe a bit closer. Statistics, I don't remember if I mentioned. But yeah, and then a bit more towards the mathematics for a data scientist, and a bit more towards engineering for a machine learning engineer. But then, yeah, data analysts, then they need to have a sounder business background and a sounder understanding of fashion that usually like machine learning engineers do not really have.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where the courses that we're offering is unique, because it gives you both perspective, both viewpoints, of which you mentioned you so often miss within your team.
Exactly.
And Marco, we really appreciate you talking today, but also contributing to or giving your point of view on the content of the course that we are soon to launch. So thank you very much from all of us here at London College of Fashion, the Fashion Business School. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our talk today. Those of you that are interested in in going into data analytics, joining perhaps Marco one day and his team at H&M. There's details there on the screen of the MSc Fashion Analytics and Forecasting that we are currently recruiting for and will launch in September of this year. So perhaps we look forward to perhaps some of you joining us here at London College of Fashion. Marco, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you liked the talk.
No, very interesting insights. Thank you very much.